I try to help them any way I can.
I think you just gotta listen to the person when they're confiding in you. They need to be talking to someone, so you listen to them. And I think really in like most situations, you encourage them to ask for help, because I don't know. I know a couple. Actually, I do know a couple people that run away, but pretty sure most of them will tell you that it's not all it's cracked up to be once you leave. So I would want that person to really like have exhausted all their options at home before they really left.
I would try and tell he or she that it would be a bad idea. They probably wouldn't solve anything. You're running away from, the pain and the environment that you're in, the fact that you think that people don't care for you. But if you're running away, you're just getting more distance between that. You're not helping the situation. So I would try and make them feel cared about, and try and make them feel like I was someone that they could turn to.
You really can't stop them from running away, so I'd probably try to give them a place to stay. If they can't stay with me, I'll just try to at least help them any way I can, probably giving them something to eat or giving them some money.
Depends on what's going on. If there's, for example, if there's abuse at home, I would try to help them figure out, places they can be when they're safe, ways for them to help cope with it. With abuse situations, a lot of times who's abused doesn't want to tell human services or child family services, because then they could be taken away from their home and put in a foster home, and that's a really complicated issue. I would do what I could to help my friend, but I think there's a lot of things that would be out of my hands.
I would try to help them. I think some things can be worked through. Maybe if they felt like they had an ally, they wouldn't need to run away. And there are options for people who are being abused or neglected that wouldn't involve running away, and I would try to get them help so that they wouldn't have to leave.
National Runaway Switchboard is the federally designated communication system for runaway and homeless youth. And we're an 800 number, 1-800-RUNAWAY, a place that youth can call 24 hours a day. We started in 1971 as a place for youth to call 24 hours a day in Chicago, and it was just Chicago at that time. And it was called Metro Help at that in 71. Then 3 years later, the federal government took a look at youth on the street, and several important things came out of this research. The first thing being that we discovered youth are not always running to something, but from something, which is a common misperception today, still, as it was back then in 74. People think that runaway youth are bad kids. We find that they're not bad kids. They could be in bad situations, but you never know what it is that's going on in these callers and youth's lives. So in 74, with the research the government did, they passed an act called the Runaway and Homeless Youth Act of 1974. And what this act did was create three things. It created shelters for runaway and homeless youth, drop-in centers and outreach efforts for runaway and homeless youth, and then a communication system. And so then in 74, we changed our name from Metro Help to the National Runaway Switchboard, and changed our scope of focus from just Chicago to nationwide. The National Runaway Switchboard is volunteer run, so our liners, those who are answering calls to 1-800-RUNAWAY, the 24-hour hotline, are volunteers. We also have people nationwide who are street team members and are out, spreading the word of 1-800-RUNAWAY so that people know where to call, when they need somebody to speak to in a confidential and anonymous manner.
I also like that, we're bringing a face to a really important issue that's going on throughout the country and the world. I appreciate the work that we do, and I think that it's really useful and necessary.
Just knowing that you can make a difference to somebody's life, being able to help people in a way that I never thought I'd be able to, just doing my regular job, And as well as that, I have to say the people that I meet here, that's one of the best things about working for an organisation like this, because you meet people from all walks of life that you might not necessarily meet at your job or, you know, doing anything else. So that's definitely a great positive.
My favorite part about working for NRS is the community that we have here in the call center that is very supportive of other liners, and we really develop a strong connection between the different people who work at the same time with each other and help each other through difficult situations.
I wouldn't know what has been the most difficult moment, but I think the most difficult thing about doing what we do is not being able to follow up, for me anyway. So hanging up the phone and just not knowing what's going to happen after that, that's something that can be quite difficult, especially when you're on the phone with somebody for a long time and you really feel like you've connected with them during a huge crisis in their life, and then just not being able to understand what happens after that.
I think it's just realizing that, you know, we can't help everyone, and you know, there are some callers that we just don't have the resources to help, but luckily we do have good relationships with other organizations that may be better suited to help them. I think it's just hard because as a volunteer, you know, working on the crisis lines, you really want to, you know, try your hardest to help everyone that calls in, and sometimes it's just, you know, realizing that it's not always possible in the way that you would want it to be.
I think difficult moments arise as a result of difficult calls. Sometimes not feeling like you did enough, or remembering after you end the call another idea that you could have proposed. Just trying to establish that separation between what is in my control and what is not in my control, and feeling comfortable with that.
I think locally we've gotten a lot of acknowledgement, and yeah, nationally I think that we have with the Runaway Bill that was passed. I think that there could always be more attention paid to it. I think that it's a really important issue, and you know, prior to working here, I really had no knowledge of it. So I mean, I think that we do a lot here to make sure that the word gets out. Definitely think that there could be more.
I think that there is an excellent runaway prevention curriculum that we have here at our organization, and that is in many schools, but I think it would be excellent if it was in all schools, and that all youth were aware of the statistics of runaways and what to do if they decide that they want to run away, and that we are here.
It's really important to listen to kids without judgment. The teenage years are probably the hardest years of anyone's life. So, you know, it's really important to just be there and support one another. Also education, just educating people about the impacts of their actions, alternatives to running away. I don't think people think about that there might be something different that they could be doing instead of just immediately running away. So it's important to present those alternatives and educate people.
Acknowledge that sometimes home isn't the safest place or the best place for a youth. Be open to the idea of alternative living situations, and be supportive of difficult times.
The problem probably starts at home and then it transcends to school, and so there probably needs to be a much better communication between school and home, and there probably needs to be a lot more out there for kids to get involved in who aren't necessarily so focused at school, academic work, or they're having problems at home. There needs to be some kind of place they can go to where they can get additional help.
You know, I think of children in need of something, whether that be help or assistance or guidance. I think of teens who need something, and I don't know what they need, but hopefully, you know, by calling our services, they get a little bit of something that they are looking for.
A young person who's in a really difficult situation and feels overwhelmed and just wants to get away from what's going on.